Welcome to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm Brad Williams. On this episode, I'm joined by drummer, collaborator, and educator Eric Doob. Eric is one of those musicians you probably heard playing across a wide range of projects, including Live From Here with Chris Thile, as well as his long-standing collaboration with guitarist Matthew Stevens. He's also an active educator and a thoughtful voice on creativity, sound, and collaboration. In this conversation, we talk about the role of sound in shaping music, the importance of shared taste when working with other musicians, and what it means to stay present and focused in a world where we have access to everything all the time. This is a conversation about listening, collaboration, and finding your voice as a musician. Here's my conversation with Eric Doob. Eric, welcome to the podcast. How are things today?
Thank you, Brad. Oh, everything is good. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've been just admiring your playing from afar for a long time, and seeked you out, and I'm glad that we're having some time to just hang out and talk today.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, and thanks for those kind words. And I'm glad we could connect.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw your name and heard you was probably you were doing some Live From Here stuff with Chris Thile. Yeah,
cool.
And I was were
you a listener to that show?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It was a really cool thing that they had going on there. It's too
Yeah,
bad it's not happening anymore. But
yeah, I know. I was bummed to see it go away, but what a collective of just wonderful musicians just doing all sorts of things.
Incredible. Yeah. It was an incredible thing to be a part of. I got to sort of like play in that kind of house band that he had for a little while there, over the course, I guess, of a couple of years, or maybe I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure how long it was exactly, but just in that small amount of time where he had the residency at Town Hall, where the show would be recorded and take place in front of a live audience in New York. So much cool music that I got to kind of be a part of. And it was kind of a rotating cast of these musicians from New York and elsewhere that would be a part of that band. And it was always just such a blast, and also such a challenge. Chris is, Chris Thile, the band leader, is just such a musical force in so many ways, and
Sure.
and just keeping up with his sense of creation and creativity and all that stuff was just a whirlwind, but really, really fun.
Yeah, it was incredible that he draws from so many influences, and you would just never know from one week to the next what kind of music you were going to hear, or who was even going to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was it. I mean, that's a really good way of putting it. I mean, he's kind of a conduit of so many worlds of music that he can play and represent totally authentically while also just being himself, in just a real virtuosic kind of way. So yeah, every week. I mean, what was wild about that experience was that every week he would have a song of the week, which he would call song of the week. And oftentimes that song would be, he would be writing it, putting it together, writing lyrics, composing it, arranging it, and like the night before the first rehearsal. And so we would just get like a voice memo sent to us of something that he put together, this, often like an opus of like really amazing lyrics and music that would go in and out of all these different places. And then it would just show up as an email, like, okay, this is the song of the week and then that was just one part of the show, So It was really just kind of a look into his process and just how prolific he is as just a creator of art. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. I recently had the opportunity to chat with Matthew Stevens.
Yes.
The episode hasn't released yet, but we chatted recently and just love the new album. It's so good. Cool. And that prompted me to reach out to you, and just because I know you have a dual role on that, right? You're producing as well as playing on the album, right?
Yeah. On this one, I helped Matt with that, some elements of that. Josh Johnson, the great saxophone player, was also in that role, sort of working on that stuff. And Matt largely did a lot of it, But yeah, I worked with him, with the sessions once we were recording and just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, like we've done for a long time. I mean, Matt is like a long time dear friend and like a very close collaborator. Maybe one of the people who I've just played music with the most over the last 15 to 20 years of my life. So we've worked together closely on a bunch of stuff. But specifically a couple of his records over the last several years have been things we've worked closely together on. And and this one was just like a new step in that process. It was really fun to do. But I'm glad that you're into it.
Yeah, I was just knocked out with what you were playing on it. And I remember mentioning to him when we were talking, the sound of the drums are just magnificent on that recording.
Are you a drummer?
Good. So I started out as a drummer, studied percussion, and eventually started playing bass. I'm mostly a singer, so
cool.
I found that I could get more work as a singing bass player than I could probably get as a drummer. So
that makes sense.
At least where I was living, they were a little bit in higher demand. So that's kind of the direction I went.
That might be universal.
I think you're right. But I as a bass player, I think I enjoy playing with a good drummer as much or more than even playing drums, because the relationship is so connected. So I have such a heart for listening to wonderful players like yourself. So,
Oh man. The sound of the record and the sound of the drums should be, is largely due in part to Kyle Hoffman, who is the engineer, recording engineer and mixing engineer of that record, and also of Matt's previous kind of solo band record that he put out several years ago called Pre-Verbal. We worked with Kyle on both of those records, and he is a real masterful engineer and also a very creative engineer. So I don't know. I think there's just one track out of that record right now. I don't know if you've heard the whole thing.
I have heard the whole thing. Cool. Yeah. It's so good.
But the element of the drums kind of sounding unique, or in some cases kind of just aesthetically different, maybe than you would expect in that context of that kind of music, is definitely from a lot from Kyle's vision of what drums can sound like and what he wants a record to sound like. So, a really cool artist and a really cool person to work with and collaborate on. It just kind of come up with ideas about what should this sound like what could we do with this. And when he was sending mixes of the record, he just in several of the instances, the drums were just sounding more and more gnarly, and and it was getting more and more exciting as he sort of just kind of crafted the sound and carved it out. So it's really nice to work with someone who is also having a vision of maybe what the sound might be like besides just what you're giving them. And so Kyle's definitely one of those people.
Yeah. When you're doing a session, specifically a jazz session, do you take an arsenal of snare drums with you and cymbals, or do you typically like to kind of keep kind of a consistent voice through the entire project?
I like to switch things up, and especially I find that in the context of like an acoustic kind of instrumental recording like that, where it's largely happening live and live off the floor, and you're not usually overdubbing drums or anything like that. And I find that the way you tune and treat the drums and the cymbals you choose to use or not use, it really does affect your choices. If I sit down at a drum set that's tuned a certain way and that has a certain type of timbre to the cymbals, it's going to make me hear certain things. And that's, it's not unique to drums. I think, guitar players and bass players and any kind of musician that has the ability to kind of alter their instrument significantly with the turn of a knob or something like that. It just automatically takes your brain and your reference points to a different place as soon as things sound and feel different. So I like to start imagining those things sometimes as soon as I get demos from people, as soon as I get charts from people that I have the ability to figure out what it kind of sounds like, what the tone of the music is. Because then you start to be able to create a sonic world in your head where the song can live, instead of looking at it as just, I'm going to apply my template of the stuff that I always do to this music, and it'll have this sound that I have. No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that either. And I have plenty of my favorite drummers that maybe are closer to that approach in how they play, recording sessions and on other people's music. But I have found that, and maybe it has to do with just my taste in music, and that I like things like music, a lot of music where if the drums didn't sound the way they sounded, the music wouldn't feel the same, the groove wouldn't feel the same. That it's hard for me to remove that part of the process from my decision making and my musical perspective, just because every time I put on my favorite music, it's really specific how that stuff sounds, and people have considered that stuff. I mean, my favorite records, I feel like the sound of every instrument was really highly considered. So I hope to, when I'm making something or a part of something, have that same level of attention to detail in terms of caring about what the sound is. And, I'm still working at it.
Yeah. Well, sound and sound production and tone. I mean, it's like a lifelong pursuit, isn't it?
Totally.
Right. And it's always evolving. And, but yeah. And I just think in terms of like the sound, I mean, a track can be defined by the sound of the snare drum or maybe by the ride cymbal, or, it's
absolutely,
it can it can hold the DNA of a track, so easily.
Yeah, I think so. I think I can't remember who it was that I remember talking to this about how, and maybe even the drums might have the most power in that way of, or maybe they were saying that, if you listen to popular music throughout the last, 60 years or whatever it is, that the first defining element of a lot of these, not only kind of periods of music, but also these kind of sub movements of music happening within those periods, is the sound of the drums. So and it's such an impactful statement that happens immediately in any type of music you listen to. I think that it's really powerful, and and I've learned over the years, and I'm continuing to learn that when you're in these situations where you're making those decisions, you need to remain open to what you're receiving from the music, what you're receiving from your choices, on how much to play, on what it should sound like, because I do think that there's this that it's fragile, and that if you make the right choices, at least for your aesthetic and for your path, in a recording or for a song, you can either kind of open up the kind of emotional potential of a piece of music, or potentially you could maybe suppress it or squander it if you're coming in with your own agenda of how you how you want the drums to be, but maybe that's not what things are actually need. It's still, like I said, it's still a journey that I'm on, and it's still something that every time I record or make music with people, or produce anything with anybody, I'm still discovering those things of like, oh, I might be following my own agenda right now. And if I just take a breath and step back and listen and see, and be open to what is actually the potential of this thing, it might actually be way better if I just do X, Y, and Z. So yeah. Especially in regards to sound.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you doing a lot of producing? Do you do a lot of, are you working with a lot of different artists as a producer, or do you primarily doing a lot of mostly playing?
I mean, I primarily play, but I would say that the people that I work with a lot, I've developed relationships with them where, I end up sometimes doing some type of thing that could fall under that umbrella category of production. So, and that's just because the people that I know and are close with musically, kind of know that I do some things like that, and that I have, like, I have a little studio in Brooklyn. And when I say studio, I mean a room that has drums and a desk in it, but I have a little room in Brooklyn where I make my own stuff, and I write music and record music and make stuff with my collaborators, or will edit Pro Tools sessions with people, or or add drums to other people's music. But I think I definitely, in maybe the last 10 years or so, got more into all those elements of things. So you mentioned Matt and his and that record. What was it? I don't know what year it came out. I think it was 2017, 2018, something like that. That record, Pre-Verbal, that I worked on with him, was maybe like a first foray into like really working on sound design and additional layers of stuff, and drum, manipulating drum loops and all sorts of stuff. And that I did that all over that record. And then that sort of kind of was a beginning for me of just trying to do all sorts of work in that area, whether it was on my stuff or on different records of my friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I don't even really know these days, when people say that they're a producer, what that means half the time. I know what it means in the traditional sense of the record business, and that old kind of the more old school kind of archetype of what a producer is. Now it's a lot more fluid to say you're producing something, or you're a producer. And I think I'm hesitant to call myself, put a label of any type on that. I'd like to work in all facets of music creation, and in the recording process, I do work in, I am somewhat fluent in Pro Tools, and I work in there, and I do enjoy collaborating with people on their recorded music. So I hear
that a lot, just that term producer, it's a bit labelish, right? It's like it's like attach a label to it. But I think I like, and when I spoke with Matthew about it, it sounded like you three had a very nice collaborative spirit about making some sonic choices and just some really nice decisions about some directions on where to go with the tunes. And it sounds like a really wonderful relationship you have.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great working with Matt. It was great working with Josh. Matt and I, like I said, we've just been making music together for a long time, and long before even talking about record production decisions was even a thing. We've just been making music together for so long that I do think that we have musical shorthand that we've developed where we just can get to a certain point of collaboration pretty quickly. And I think that when you are making records with people, it's nice to have that. Oh, we don't need to say too much. We both kind of already know that's not it, or we both kind of already know that is it. And I think that having that kind of accelerated, like you're just getting, there's less of a dance around trying to figure out, what does this person actually want, or what, or am I giving this person what they actually are envisioning? I'm not saying that I always know that with him, but I think that there's a certain amount of familiarity and also a lot of shared taste, I think, which kind of is, for me, the element of music that I almost think these days is more important in terms of aligning with somebody than what quote unquote genre of music you play, or what you're, or what, how even good you are at an instrument. I think that the more I do this, the more I find that when I'm around someone whose taste and whose choices feel like they ring true to me, I feel like we can be really creative and really move really quickly.
Yes.
Because there's an agreement on, like, there's a lot that doesn't need to be talked about or said because you are kind of aligned in your aesthetic vision of what you're working on should be. And I think that is something that is harder to kind of define. You just kind of know it when you're around it, and you seek out people who you love their taste. And like I said, the longer I do this, the more I realize that that's such a central element of what drives everything that I do in music. From the moment that I turn on a record, I'm doing it because something about that record speaks to my taste, and all the way to how I might play with some other people, or what music I would love to be playing with other people. It drives everything.
I couldn't agree more. And, as you're saying that, I was just thinking about when I was younger and I would put together a group for a project, some shows or whatever. It would always be, I remember, like, I would just try to find the best players no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
The best players you could find.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it was not cohesive. It was
Right.
like, there's a lot of personalities there. There's a lot of things that might keep it. And as time has went on, as I got
Mm-hmm.
older and had more perspective, I suppose, on it,
Mm-hmm.
it's more about, as you're speaking of, finding people that you're like-minded with and people that you have that unspoken communication with, and just people that you can collaborate quickly with and
Mm-hmm.
both pull from maybe from the same well as each other.
Yeah, totally. And it's so interesting too, because sometimes you'll find out that some people that you work really well with, they have all sorts of different stuff that they're into that you don't even know about or that you're not into, but there's some sort of unspoken thing about just aligning on the choices that you're both making that is harmonious, and that creates something. And oftentimes, I found that you do need a little bit of that contrast within a band. You need people that do something a certain way, and then having somebody that comes from a different place, it creates that nice counterpoint, so that everyone is not saying the same sort of thing at the same time. But yeah, I think it's really cool. It's the reason why I like the best bands are what they are. I feel like is because there's just an agreed upon mission that, even if it's not stated, it comes to fruition in just the nature of those people being in a room together. It's one of the most fascinating things about music to me is great bands, and just how, when we think about great artists, whether it's Coltrane or anybody else, like it's hard to divorce them from their great band that we think of,
I agree.
and
No, I
I
completely
it's
agree.
like that's still the way today. I think for me, it's like as a fan of music, and I talk to my friends about this. Like I love bands, and as much as I love like cool sessions that have like a mix of players who haven't played together before, that's awesome too. But there's something cool about the development of a band and the mission of a band, and the personalities that come together to form that synergy. And yeah, it's just how like a kind of group statement on taste and aesthetics kind of comes from that. It's really fascinating, and something that I still kind of look for. I'm always interested in finding
Yeah,
a new favorite band.
I'm with you. I am the
Mm-hmm.
same way. I completely agree. Um, so so when did you start playing, and where are you from originally,
I'm
Eric?
originally from outside of Boston.
Okay.
So I grew up there, then just went down the road to Berklee College of Music to go to school there, and then have lived in New York ever since, basically right after graduating there. So almost 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it like a middle school, high school thing when you're like, oh, this is what
Yeah.
I want to do?
Oh, yeah. It was, well, the moment that I realized I just wanted to play drums was just the moment that the local high school band came to the elementary school and played for all the fourth and fifth graders, kind of sitting on gym mats, just watching the band play, and just going down the line and just introducing what each instrument was. And at the end, they had the drummer play, and it was really so captivating. I mean, I was telling this story to somebody recently, and they were like, yeah, shout out to, public school music programs. And it's really true. I mean, I don't think that I would have felt like would have had a gateway into being able to explore any of this if it wasn't for that introduction, and just that like mandatory school meeting where all the kids come and they listen to the high school big band play, which would go to all the elementary schools in the area. So it was just through there, and then local drum lessons, because there were no drum set lessons at my school, but you could go to the local music store, which I did, and I had some really great teachers in the Boston area growing up, and yeah, I just got started that way.
Did you do like concert band,
Yeah.
all drum line, all of that stuff too?
Yeah. It was there was a concert band and a jazz band, and and a marching band. And I did all those things. I think in hindsight, looking back, I think the marching band was mandatory if you wanted to play in the jazz band. I think they're like, we're going to get you there. And it wasn't like a drum corps. Like, there were certain schools that are more, really hard out of that background. And it was, it was a little bit looser. But yeah, so I don't really have that drum corps background, but I just played in the local middle school, high school bands, and then played in like battles of the bands locally with friends, playing like, the Grateful Dead and Fish and Santana and this sort of repertoire. And I did start studying music out at this school. There's a school, the Rivers School, which is like, they had an after school program that you could go out to. And that was the first time I played like kind of any kind of small group jazz or anything like that. It's also where I met a great musician in the Boston area named Joe Camara, who's a percussionist and dancer and singer from Mali, that was kind of like my first gig ever in working professionally in high school. We play at this little club in Boston, Cambridge, called the Middle East. We played every week there. And I was playing with a group of guys from Mali, and it was an incredible learning experience just to be playing every week and also be playing music that was kicking my butt and teaching me a lot of things about all sorts of stuff. But yeah, that was, I growing up in that area, it's really incredible. At least at that time, you had like 3 or 4 music venues that were small. You had a lot more music venues than that, but I'm thinking of the ones that would maybe have like jazz, or music kind of in that idiom. And I grew up like 15 minutes away from being able to see Elvin Jones play at the Regatta Bar, or Roy Haynes play at Scullers, or Dennis Chambers play at, any number of places, who I was obsessed with as a young middle schooler and high schooler. I saw him I saw him a lot. But so there was a lot of opportunity to be exposed to like incredible music at a pretty reasonable price point and not very far away. So I was kind of lucky to grow up, with that proximity to Boston and Cambridge, because, I really, looking back, I really value all the music that I was able to take in, and at a young age too. Yeah.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but do you play match grip? Do you play traditional grip?
I play match grip. I play traditional grip when I play brushes. I don't really know how to play brushes not traditional grip. I kind of wish that I did, like Bill Stewart or somebody, because then I could probably play more stuff. I could probably play better or faster or something. But yeah, I play traditional grip when I play brushes, but match grip when I play. I'm trying to learn traditional grip a little bit with sticks too, because I've been doing more of it recently, especially when just practicing, because it makes you play different stuff. And and I wish it wasn't the case. I wish I would, but it's true. When I play with traditional grip, different ideas come out of my head one way or the other. So, yeah.
Yeah. How was the Berkeley experience for you? I mean, I speak with so many people on here that are connected to Berkeley, and just the community, I think, is what I hear so often. Just the relationships that people have just carried on since they left.
Yeah, I had a great experience there. I mean, again, I feel like I was just getting my butt kicked the whole time, but I had an incredible experience there. When I got there, there were so many musicians that, now you would know, all of them. And they were either students there that were leaving, or that I just caught a glimpse of, or there were also students there along with me. That it was just so inspiring to be in that environment. I had some great teachers, my drum teachers there, Mark Walker, Jamie Haddad, and the late great Ralph Peterson Jr. It was pretty incredible experience just from drums, and then also some of the folks there that taught the ensembles there, Hal Crook and the late Dave Samuels and all sorts of people. It was just a an incredible experience. I grew a lot there, but it was, and I met a lot of the people that I work with now. I knew, Oscar Stagnaro is a bass player there. He was kind of a mentor of mine, and he's a teacher in the bass department. Was the person who eventually would recommend me to play with Paquito de Rivera, and all sorts of people. I mean, I met Esperanza Spalding there, who I've been working with for the last several years. We were students there at the same time. Just so many folks, and also it's like now I've also connected with people like years later, and we realized we were there at the same time, and it was just and you immediately kind of have something that you relate on, that experience of Berklee at that time. It was really a valuable time for me in terms of absorbing a lot of stuff, learning tons of stuff, becoming, a better musician, but also just learning how to operate with people that are from so many different walks of life and have so much to offer in terms of the music that they know that I knew nothing about. And it was great.
Was the plan always to finish there and then go to New York and get to work?
I don't know. Looking back, I'm like, did I have a plan? I don't even know. I think I think what it was is that a lot of my friends had already gone there, and I certainly was aware of a lot of the music that was happening. That there was the music that I loved. So I definitely knew that I wanted to be at least somewhat a part of the music scene that was happening in New York. And also on top of that, I just lived in Boston my whole life, and I was ready for something different. Now I'm a professor at Berklee. I teach there as well. So there's some full circle stuff happening. But at that time, I just was so excited by stuff like, at that time it was like the Jazz Gallery and these clubs where the music that was coming out of there was so exciting to me. And even when I would just take weekend trips to go down there, it was just so magnetic. But to be quite honest, it's a little hazy of whether I actually had any type of plan or if it's just something I tried in the moment that stuck,
That's all right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I remember being that age many years ago. And if someone had asked me that question, I'd be like, oh, absolutely not. Sometimes I still wonder if I have a plan today,
Totally. That sounds right to me.
Yeah. I know I saw on your bio that you've done a considerable amount of teaching different places. Mm-hmm. Is that something do you have a passion for that of working with developing musicians?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to be able to do. I taught a little at New School and at Hunter College in New York. That was really just some drum lessons. And then the most teaching I've ever done is very recent, which is at Berklee in the ensemble department there, where I work with groups there. And yeah, it's an incredible thing to be able to do. I learn a lot about all sorts of things by being a teacher of young musicians. And at Berklee specifically, there's such an array of folks there that are coming from so many backgrounds in terms of what they're trying to play, what they're interested in, what their level of musicianship is, what their experience is. And it is it's an opportunity that I'm very thankful for, to be able to be in rooms with people who are discovering themselves musically and help the best I can in guiding them towards, guiding them along the way in that search, because it's a joyful thing to see people discover new things in the moment. Because that's the way it is when you're first starting doing stuff. It's like there are tangible moments where you see people go, oh, like whatever it is, whether it's a composition that they're diving into, or whether they're writing, or whether it's a new way of playing, or a new way of thinking about playing. So it's something that I am really happy to be doing, and also something that is, like I said, it gives a lot to me. And I know that people talk about that all the time. I didn't understand that until I did it myself. I didn't understand like the exchange that teaching is until I did more of it. I always thought of it as maybe it was in my mind, it was more of just a one directional kind of transaction of the teacher tells the students. And I didn't realize until I started doing it of just how much I learned from those situations, and also just how gratifying it is to see folks who really care about doing this move along and progress and find their path. Really a good experience.
I think it's also such a beautiful tribute to the people that mentored you along the way, to take the things that they've shown you and then pass it on to the next generation of musicians.
Totally. I think it's also right that you have that was a really nice way of putting it. And I think that it's just reminded me so much that music in general is, when I'm in the teaching element of it, I realize that music in general is, at least the way I view it, is like a continuum of ideas and of people and of contributions and of collaborations and of mentorships and all these elements. It's not, it's like that idea of like, that you said, of like these folks that mentored you and taught you, they also were having their own careers and lives outside of teaching you and mentoring you. But it was essential that you got that you had that exchange with them and you had that experience with them. And even if it's not in a like a scholastic environment, even if it's not in within the walls of a school, we all know already that teaching, whether it's at jam sessions or wherever music takes place, teaching is already happening. Just through music existing and generations of people existing, teaching is happening all the time. So it's just a matter of how that teaching is manifesting and in what context it's showing up. And I think having that broader view of how that permanent truth of teaching is always there exists within music has kind of opened my eyes to how everything is tied together. Whatever I'm doing outside of school is tied to conversations that I'm having with students at school. And and learning that interconnectivity and investigating that more and more has been a big part of how I think of teaching and how I think of music too.
I am the poor white fooled and pushed apart. I am the black man bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clad searching the whole I seek, and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crash the weak, crash the weak. I am the young woman, full of strength and hope, full of strength and hope, tangled in that ancient endless chain, endless chain, endless chain.
I talk with some people on here about this up and coming, the generation that might be in Berkeley now or maybe a few years older that had access, that have access to content
Yeah.
way more like than I certainly did,
Oh, yeah.
maybe more than you did, YouTube and every album imaginable at your fingertips on a device. And I think there are pros and cons to either.
Absolutely.
I'm thankful for the active investigative work that I had to do to go and maybe go to a music library and listen to recordings and things like
Yes.
that. But I also think that the caliber of player can also be increasing because they have access to everything all the time. Are you seeing any of that with these students that you're working with?
Well, am I seeing?
Are you seeing that is the bar being raised with players where maybe access to materials and recordings and all that is more readily available than it may have been when you and I were learning to play?
It might be. I think that it's undeniable that there is just a plethora of young musicians who are just phenomenally gifted, and so many prodigious players out there. That's for sure. And I think Instagram and YouTube and all these platforms are evidence of that, right? We see musicians. At the very least, it has made us aware of just how many folks are out there doing really great things, or at the very least, very impressive things. And I think it's hard for me to know for sure how any of that is affecting music making in a concrete way. I worry about how music that is delivered to us through an algorithmic platform that is run by people who don't necessarily care about art, but necessarily, I'm not sure like how that might affect what artists feel like they need to put on said platform. I worry about that. But I think, it's the type of thing that it's so interesting, because I think that access is incredible, but it really resonated with me when you talked about the investigative process that you had to go through to get to music. I think you said, you went going to libraries?
Yeah. Like, I did a lot of classical music, but also listening to old records of drummers, and you may have to go into the music library at the college and seek out those recordings. And I think there's value in that active exploration that's required to do that. Yes,
I do think in general that it's great for everybody to have access to things, and that that is valuable and great. I also think that process that you're speaking about is important. I think it's important to be focused on one thing. And I think that if anything, the greatest threat in my mind, of all this accessibility, all this availability of everything all the time, is distraction. Distraction from truly being able to focus on any one thing and give it the attention that it deserves, which is a lot of attention. Any of these things, they deserve like a lot of attention. And I think that if I was growing up in this time period, I'd be distracted. And in a way, and that maybe that's, I think I'm easily distracted anyway. So I think that I mean, I get overwhelmed by the amount of tabs that are open on my computer. So just that alone. But I think, so I do think that process, I mean, I remember it being in middle school being in middle school and going to the local library in my town and renting a double CD, which, of the Police live, Synchronicity Live. I don't know if you know that record.
Live at the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I do. Yeah.
And it hitting me like a ton of bricks, because it's like I had discovered this piece of treasure, because, that was the one CD where I picked it, where I said, well, I think this is good. I know this band or whatever, but there were only a couple options of the CDs that you could pick. It was like a couple shelves, right? And they just happened to be there. I think that process of discovery, that process of something feeling a little precious, something feeling a little like you're special, and then having your world kind of blown wide open by what you discover in this one thing. And knowing when you get home from school, I'm going to go back to that one thing that I found. Sure, it's limited, and you might not have the same level of context, that you have for listening to that Police record, and then knowing that there are like 20 other Police recordings you could listen to, and then knowing that at any given time there's listeners also like these people at the bottom of the screen that you could scroll to or whatever. But I'm not sure that any of that is immediately necessary if what you're listening to in that moment is blowing your mind. The only thing necessary is that thing until you feel like you've digested it and absorbed it. And so I do think that the attention economy, whatever you want to call it, this reality we're living in, we're constantly being pulled in a lot of directions, and many of them, trying to get us to do something that will, buy something, whatever it is. That worries me in terms of people's ability to just experience art in any kind of truly kind of like sacred way.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that I say to folks, these young folks, when we're working on stuff together, that like this moment that we have in this room, and I view this when I'm playing music with other people too. Like, it's such a special moment in this current way of life to be able to have a moment where you're just in a room with people creating something with a shared purpose. And in theory, at our best, that's the only thing any of us are going to be focusing on. Obviously our minds veer, that's natural, but like, it's the only thing that any of us are going to be thinking about or experiencing or living, is that thing. And that feels threatened to me by things tugging on our attention at all times. So it's my, this is my viewpoint on it, but it's as somebody who's just trying to play music, trying to make stuff. But I think that it affects all sorts of people in all sorts of ways. But yeah, that's what I've kind of, maybe what I worry about more than maybe, because your original question was about, do you see that affecting the way people are making music or the way people are playing, right?
Yeah, just that, as you're seeing, players develop that you're working with, I'm curious whether them having access to everything is maybe moving them along a little further. Quickly,
right.
Right. than when we were, because of the access to things, or maybe is it keeping them, is it holding them back, right?
Yeah.
That, as you're speaking of that distraction, I mean, that could be something that, content overload could actually be harnessing things more than it could be helping.
It's certainly possible. I'm heartened just to see, just in the folks that I meet in person, the young folks that I work with and meet in person, just how passionate and gifted and hardworking and creative they all are. And when you're with people, and that's that other thing, when you're with people in real life and you're experiencing what they have to offer in real life, you get a lot more information and you get a lot more out of that whole exchange, as opposed to the virtual version of it. So I'm sure that there are positives and negatives. I can really only speak to how this stuff is affecting me, because I know that that's real and true. So maybe that's why I went down that road of talking about that other element of it. But but overall, I think that the state of creativity in music is good, but especially in younger folks. But
yeah, no, I agree.
We'll see how all this stuff pans out.
Yeah, I just feel like it's constantly evolving, you know. But as you were saying, I just kept thinking as you were saying that there aren't many things in 2026 that a group of people can do where beliefs, thoughts, opinions can be put aside for a period of time and everyone can come together. There aren't many things like that left other than music. And it's such a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a sacred thing. I think it's I think that's the reason why it's used in all those kind of contexts all over the world throughout human experience. And I do value so much, whenever I'm in a room with people making music, whether I'm a part of it or whether I'm an audience member or a bystander. I value those moments a lot, and I find myself needing them more and more.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Before we go, I'd love to hear what you have on the horizon, kind of what's coming down the road in the upcoming months. What all are you doing?
Yeah. In terms of touring stuff, I'm mostly playing, like I said, with Esperanza Spalding's band right now. And I have some other dates with other people as well, peppered in there. I'm doing some recording coming up with some folks. And yes, and also and some stuff with Matt's band in the future as well. By the way, I have to say, when I looked at your show, it was amazing. Like I was going through the episodes of people that you had on, and it was like this amazing blend of like my heroes and also my friends, like of people that I've worked with. And it's a really cool assortment of artists that you have on here.
I will tell you, Eric, it is 100% a selfish tactic of mine to just talk to the people that I love as musicians. And it just really so cool. happens that that's the list of people that they are. So and it keeps it fresh for me, because I think if I did like one thing, if I talked about one part of music, I would get sick of it, and the people that listen to it would get sick of it. And getting to talk with people in all different walks of their career and playing different instruments, it keeps it fresh for everyone. Yeah. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's great. I hope you're able to keep going with the in the prolific way you're doing right now. It's just so many great folks on there. I need to start listening to more of them.
Thank you. What I typically do is I like record a batch of interviews over a course of a few weeks and then spend the time editing. So this is like interview like 10 of this week. I've been really busy, but it's been amazing. I've had such a good week of just talking with people and just, just like this conversation with you, just people that are just so passionate about, carrying the torch, either as a performer or as a teacher or whatever discipline in music. It's so wonderful. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, keep it up. It's great.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, Eric, I've had so much fun hanging out with you. This is I knew I was going to have a good time, but it exceeded everything that I had hoped. So thank you for that.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me on. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Well, best of luck, and just thanks for the music. Thanks for everything you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you, Brett.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please follow or subscribe to the Bandwich Tapes wherever you listen, and consider leaving a rating or review. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.